Okay, this is going to sound weird, but my husband and I speak English as another way to balance out patriarchy. And that may sound really weird, but let me just explain. So stay with me. And thank you for this comment. So the language that we started on was English because he is very fluent. He's like C2 level. He's like almost native level at this point. So it would not make any sense for us to speak French. When I speak like 6-year-old levels French, I need to communicate very deep things with my partner, right? But even if we had not started that way, I believe that speaking English, no matter what my French level is going to get, is important to me because we are in his country. I moved here for me. I moved here because I wanted to. I moved here by myself. I created my own life for myself here. And then I met him and we merged our lives. And the reason why I talk about this so much, y'all, because people are always like romanticize like this idea of like, oh my God, like pulling an Ariel, right? Oh, I'm just going to find a man in another place because I hate this country or I hate my life or I feel alone. And wouldn't that be romantic and exciting? Blah. No, I lucked out. I also came here for me. And then I met him. And then again, we married long after I'd already established a life for myself here, a community, friends. But it is so dangerous to move somewhere, especially another country, for a man. So even if I was like C2 level French, I would still be speaking English in our relationship because I'm in his country. My family is his family, right? My family is thousands of miles away. I don't ever get to see them, maybe like once every couple years. My friends, thousands of miles away. I'm like my old friendships, right? I have friends here, obviously. My language, my culture. Now, of course, being a US American, you cannot get away from my culture, right? Because we're like neo-colonial. We're taking over the world with all of our military and media, blah, blah, blah. But that aside, I am not sacrificing all these things to be here because I want to be here, but I am paying a price by being here and staying here. So for me to at least be anchored to my country and my life and my history, my past, and language is such an important part of who you are. You better believe I'm keeping my language in our relationship, not just because we speak, we can communicate better in English than we ever will be able to in French probably, but because patriarchy is going to set me up to get screwed. No matter what. So him and I have to work really hard to fight patriarchy, seeping into our relationship because of the ways that we are both socialized, right? And every time we catch it, we course correct, we learn from it, we grow from it, and we do better. It comes up all the time. Any couple that says that patriarchy is not showing up in their relationship is lying. So then you add on top of that the way that the system itself with the laws is going to screw you. Because if you have a child with a man in another country, you cannot leave that country ever unless you leave the kid. Unless you can somehow prove that person is abusive or whatever, it is kidnapping. So if you move somewhere for a man and have kids with them, you're never leaving. You are now, especially if it's not a good relationship, you're a hostage. And then you don't have his family to support you. You may not even have very many friends, especially if you're not fluent in the language. You're always going to feel like a visitor instead of like in your homeland, unless you have worked so hard to integrate yourself into the culture. And again, language is a big part of that. There's a lot of ways that my husband and I have to be very intentional about making sure that my part of our international couple is still centered too, because by default of us living here in France, his is centered. Then you have patriarchy already centering him as a man, and you have all the laws backing up him, right? I want to give one more example of why this is so important in terms of the language you speaking, really setting up the dynamic of not power, but like, I don't know, I guess power or whatever. Power sounds like a weird word to use, but I don't know what else to use. So one of my friends, she is from the US, her husband is Italian. They met in France and they spoke French. That is their language. It's a third language. So it's not his language, it's not her language, it's another language. And that, whatever the word is, that balanced things out. Because if she was speaking just his language, then he would kind of like have this upper hand kind of thing. Like if she knew his language, but he didn't know hers. And then also you have patriarchy going and everything else on his side. Now, I think since then, they actually will speak, Italian or English in their relationship, but their foundation was equal. I can't tell you how many women moved to France, and I see them in this like married to French men kind of Facebook group. They come here on this dream. that their life is going to be so much better. They're going to have this romantic thing, whatever. And then they get here and they realize because they're in another country, because of patriarchy, because of international laws and French laws, and because of language and a cultural difference and being in his world, right? Like the Little Mermaid, his family and everything else, they are screwed. And this is a setup for domestic violence. And I'm not even talking like physical violence. I'm talking just being someone having way too much power. So even if they never lay a hand on you, they know they have the upper hand because you're in their turf, speaking their language, you're with their family, all that stuff. So that is, I mean, most the couples that I know that are really happy, it's because if the woman is not French, it's because she came here for herself, or they lived in her country for a while, and like they established all of this out of the gate of how they're going to keep things balanced. Because I'm telling you, if you're an international couple and you're a woman, if you're not on your territory, or even if you are, because a lot of times these men will then use visa and stuff to manipulate you, you are way more vulnerable to being screwed by patriarchy. So be careful out there.